Welcome to the Pillar Podcast, where we put racial equity front and center. Join us as we dissect equity policy, overcoming achievement gaps, and strategies that ensure equitable learning opportunities, experiences, and outcomes for all students.
Welcome to another episode of the Pillar Podcast. I'm your host, Ian Brandon. Today, I have with me Delquan Dorsey, Community Engagement and Supplier Diversity Coordinator for the Division of Diversity, Equity, and Poverty of Jefferson County Public Schools. Delquan, welcome.
What's up, man? Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I've been looking forward to this. My fellow 1911 brother. Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated.
Yep. Long time coming.
Yeah. Pleasure to have you.
Glad to be here, man. Appreciate you doing this, man. This is something that's definitely needed in the department, and I think also it could be a great resource too for just bringing more awareness to the work that we do.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. So today I want to talk a little bit about vendors, diversity in contracts, pretty much everything around bids and how you navigate the community in the business world, right?
Right.
So as the Supplier Diversity Coordinator, your main objective is to help JCPS do whatever it can to do business with specifically women and minority-owned businesses, correct?
Right.
So walk us through a little bit about what goes into that.
Good question.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, you got to understand that JCPS has had a long-term program for minority and women-owned businesses, and it's actually kind of two factions. So you got you actually have goals for minority and women participation on the construction and renovation side.
Okay.
And part of that is based on, that's where a lot of the resources are. And a lot of money's being spent there, and but a lot of people, when you think of JCPS, they don't think about that part. They just think about, what we work with the schools and the students. But a lot of people don't realize we're the biggest real estate holder next to state government, really in the state. When you think about all 150-something schools, 160 schools, and there are constantly, because of the gap over the years that we have not really built a lot, especially at high schools. We haven't renovated or built new high schools. About a few years out, when I took the role in the department, the role has always been in the department, became hybrid once a gentleman by the name of Chris Woods, who was doing it full time, he actually got an opportunity in Nashville to do the same work, city government there. And so Dr. Marshall asked me to take on the work, and so we knew early on that Shawnee was going to be a big deal. That was going to be a big construction project. And so reached out to the 7 p.m. group. I was familiar with them, and they started, we started doing some small things like networking events for those minority and women's businesses trying to do business with JCPS. We call the event Doing Business with JCPS. And even with that, we were able to increase the participation because we really wanted to make Shawnee the focal point. Mm-hmm. One, because it was a $40 million project in the heart of West Louisville, in the Shawnee neighborhood. And it's also public funds, and so you got to think about what I do and why it's important. Economically, the resources are geared to serve the students, and we got to realize too, while in Louisville it may only be 2% black-owned businesses. At the same time, there's a lot of resources coming in on behalf of Black and brown students. And so if the resources are dedicated to them, is one thing, where the investment, they benefit from it long term. A lot of us are not fully aware of how the money passes through. And so you have an end product that's bricks and mortar, but also you had some businesses that benefited from that.
Mm-hmm.
And if none of those businesses have ownership or staff that look like you and I, then it's a missed opportunity. And you got to think. So one thing I do when we're doing business with JCPS, we have our businesses there. I always ask, how many of you all have kids in JCPS? And then I ask, well, how many of you all have grandkids or family members? And most of them raise their hand.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
And so that lets you know that those resources, those opportunities are having an economic impact. And if our students' families are doing well economically, then they're going to do better in school. And so if we're spending $40 million here, $26 million there, and it's important that our families are somewhere within that opportunity of the flow of funds and the flow of opportunities to take benefit of it. So that's the main reason why it's important. It's not just about making sure that there are diverse owners that get a piece of the pie. It's also understanding the economic impact. If we're going to spend that much money, then it's important that it just don't fly to Jefferson County, but it can have the intent that the exponential impact that we need.
Yeah, it can stay home.
Right.
Homegrown.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So, would you say it's more of? Is it more the fact that there are not as many minority-owned businesses to compete for these funds, or is it more of a sense of awareness? Like minority businesses just don't know about the opportunities.
Right. Well, it's multi-levels, like with any other business. For one, when you understand the construction industry, you talk. Sometimes I go to sites and I visit these school sites where we're doing new builds, and I ask guys, I say, how'd you get into the business? 9 times out of 10, they got involved because of their family. And their father did it, their grandfather did it before them, so on and so forth. And we haven't had that luxury in the Black community. Me personally, I grew up in housing projects, so I didn't learn how to work on my house till I was grown with my house on my own. And so just being exposed to those skilled trades is very important, and it's full circle too. So going back to your original question, I'm sorry. A lot of it's awareness, being able to connect. Louisville's a segregated community. A lot of minority and women-owned businesses. Some of them are high capacity. Some are on the way up. Yeah. And so it's important that we understand and try to meet those, especially the ones that's on the way up, because we are in need. Yes, we do have some that are not getting the opportunities, but yet at the same time, because of the demand of the environment right now, there's a lot of businesses that are getting work, and that's just. But it's some that are on their way up that's not probably maximizing. And there's another issue too. So this is how it goes all the way back to the classroom. So several years ago, we made the shift as a community to focus more exclusively on getting a college degree. Reason being because studies have shown if you have a college degree, the likelihood of your annual income is going to increase.
Earning potential, yep.
Right. Excuse me. The problem is that we became so exclusively focused on that we left behind and dismissed and ignored and neglected the importance around trade skills.
Yeah.
and that's almost like if Louisville as a community was the human body, having those skill sets is like having is as important as an organ is to the human body. Because when your city decides it wants to grow, and most cities do
at some point,
right?
At some point, you're gonna
either growing or declining.
Yeah.
And Louisville's growing, but the challenge is part of that growth looks like renovation and construction. And when you're trying to build new buildings and you don't have that talent pool there, the ones you do have get stretched thin. And so, yes, there are still a lot of businesses that need to be utilized, but yet at the same time, we have to, as JCPS, we have to put an extra special emphasis on young people in our schools taking advantage of this opportunity, because now the reality is it's not either or, you going to college or not. It's really more of a hybrid. How do I go to college, or how do I get the training? How do I get that post-secondary education? But do it in a way that's economically wise, and I get the return on investment that benefits, because I'm looking at a lot of these prime contractors that get a lot of the JCPS work. I know for a fact a lot of them didn't go the four-year route because they've been those trade skill areas, they have their own path of development and training afterwards at the high school. So, like for instance, just trying to get licensing in the various professional fields. So it goes all the way back to the classroom. We need to be focused on that. One example is a couple weeks ago, we just had a career fair at Iroquois High School. Now, what I love about Iroquois is diamond in the rough. Usually, it has suffered from bad publicity.
Yes.
True enough, they have their issues. True enough, but they're not lifted up for all the good things that are there. And so, one of the good things about Iroquois is it's our only high school that has a majority of the building, if not pretty much all the building trade skills, are taught in that school. And so we just approved for some more funds to enhance their career technical education area. So we're excited about that. But a couple weeks ago, we had a career fair. And we did it last year, did it again this year. Ms. Carmen Belafonte was the mastermind behind that, who's the academy coach. So we just tried to support her. And connect other businesses there. But last year, we had half the gym. This year, both sides of the gym were filled. And the news media came, and what was really interesting was seeing how the kids and hearing the feedback, how the students really gravitate, because they are now able to make the connection of, okay, I'm learning this in classroom, but here in a few years, I'm gonna be out in the real world, and I want to be living good.
Yeah, it's real time, and I can attest to that. I have a number of friends who didn't go that traditional 4-year institution route, right? We some of us will call that a opportunity cost, right? Mm-hmm. Like I, on this hand, chose to go to college, obtain a 4-year degree. Mm-hmm. Person B over here decided to jump right into the workforce, right? So I'm giving up that immediate opportunity to earn income, start a business, hit the ground running. While person B, you're doing that. You're getting the real time experience that I'm reading about. Right. Not to say one path is more beneficial than the other.
We need both.
Yeah, you have to have both.
And nowadays I'm talking to students, and I'm telling them, hey, get your skills, take advantage of the opportunity. A friend of mine who I went to college with, actually my line brother, he's a superintendent in a small school district outside of Cleveland, and one of his goals is, of course, he's involved. He has a side hustle, real estate, but he's looking forward to retiring and then going to get his electrician license because he understands he's learned that skills is valuable and a resource and a money-making resource to him. And so think about this. If students, you could still go to college that route. That's the beautiful thing of it. JCTC is doing some really impressive stuff. Actually, as a community college, they're kind of starting to pass these 4-year institutions who are locked into that traditional mindset.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What they're doing now is they're catering programs based on workforce demands and workforce needs. And then, so they'll bring a workforce partner in and they'll help provide real live curriculum, the stuff that they're using. And then in addition to that, these young people are getting jobs where they can work and go to school.
Yeah, best of both worlds.
Best of both worlds.
Yeah.
And so that's what I'm encouraging folks to do is like, look, if you could find an employment opportunity where they pay for school out of the back, and more than likely they're gonna be paying you too, take advantage of it.
You gotta jump on that.
Yeah.
So in the workshop, we're talking about doing business with JCPS.
Mm-hmm.
Once a business owner, or community member, contractor, entrepreneur, etc., once they are aware, have become informed, what are some of the obstacles you've seen some of those businesses encounter once they learn about the renovation or construction opportunities? They're like, hey, Delquan, I want to put a bid in. Like, what are some of the consistent roadblocks, hiccups that most of our minority businesses run into?
Well, we already start off behind. And so the whole system is set up for us to, we have to come in from in some cases from a subcontract. In most cases, subcontractor, because we don't. It's one general contractor, more construction that has the ability to bid on stuff as a prime general contractor. But even they have challenges because while they're bigger, they're not as big as some of these other companies. So the bigger you are, the lower the price you can throw. You can bid on a project. But I think some of the challenges are, one is that resources, capacity, know-how, access. But I think the solutions are networking, being able to develop networking skills and relationships. Anything with business, a lot of people have the misnomer of just focusing on I gotta make money. When if you focus on being good at building relationships, not only will you make money, but it's not just about hitting that home run right out of the park. It's about getting first base, second base, third base, and then scoring that way. It's called smart growth. And so, but some of the barriers are capacity, resources, and the way JCPS is set up. You have to pretty much come in as a subcontractor in a lot of cases if you're not big enough. And so you got to be able to build relationships with those right general contractors, especially the ones that win the project. We follow the model procurement, which should be the best evaluated bid, but all I ever seen was the lowest bid win. So,
is this some of the solutions you're talking about now? Are those some of the things you highlight in your supply diversity training program? Yes.
And not only just highlight, but work with the 7 p.m. group as a third-party entity, because when I came into the role, you got to understand, people had written off JCPS. When I say people, minority women-owned businesses, like, oh, I'm not going to mess with them. They not, they let that small group get all the work. And so just being able to coach them along and help them understand, and I don't think I mentioned this earlier, so our goals are actually 15% minority business participation on a project and 10% women.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you mentioned 7 p.m. quite a bit.
Yeah.
Like, what For those that don't know, what is the 7 p.m. group?
Good question. So the 7 p.m. group is a minority-owned businesses, black-owned business that helps us with our supplier diversity solutions. What does that mean? That means, that's the point I was trying to make earlier. Folks that had lost trust with JCPS, but by us hiring them and contracting them, then it made that community, the minority business community, turn their heads like, oh, okay, JCPS is getting serious now. Because as opposed to us going out and just saying it, then we had somebody that was out in the thick with, in the field with the minority-owned businesses and say, hey, we working with them. Y'all come on. Let's get our everything in order, and we're gonna take advantage of some opportunities. And since then, we've been either hitting our goal or getting very close to it. But the interesting thing with all the projects that go on is the most important thing is making sure those big projects, those 35 million, 26 million, anything tens and upper millions, we gotta have participation on. If we could hit the goal on those, then it's a plus. But what I started doing with me, especially Shawnee, I began to really focus on those projects that are taking place inside of the urban core, inside of 264, and saying, hey, now, if we're building something and we don't hit our goal, then that's a problem. And I'm pretty sure there's board members that feel like they'll agree with that, as well as Dr. Polio.
Yeah.
And then also, we got this thing in the black community too. When you see a construction going on, leaders in the community, they drive past to see who's actually working on the job. And if they don't see anybody black and brown, then we gonna hear about it.
Yeah. And I think that, to me, that supports the other half of your role, being a community engagement.
Yes.
Right. So, looking at community engagement through that lens of racial equity, from a supplier diversity standpoint, it makes perfect sense. It makes perfect sense. As you're identifying ways to support racial equity from a community standpoint, what are some of the ways, or how are some of the ways we can get, to your point, more community involvement as stakeholders in saying, hey, we know JCPS is planning new construction here, build out here, renovation here. We want to see who's in the pipeline for this work. Just kind of more of a checks and balance. Okay.
Well, for one, all the bids and everything, all our construction work, it's funny you mentioned that. We didn't always monitor. Now we monitor. And so that's one of the other things the 7 p.m. group does for us. They actually go on site, make sure, because see what happens is with a bid, it's just hypothetical. It's basically saying this is what we're going to do.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean by the time it's ready to break ground and start digging that all that stuff is still in the place the way it is. So it's important that we have 7 p.m. go on and monitor and making sure that, one, folks are getting paid and they're getting treated right, and I think it just helps with the continuity of the project.
Is the work with the 7 p.m. group something that was birthed out of our racial equity policy?
Well, it was primarily, I kind of came to JCPS with that lens.
Okay.
When my work at the governor's office and helping develop a lot of policy, working with state government. But I'm sorry, what was the question again?
Yeah, is the work that we're doing with the 7 p.m. group,
as far as racial equity
is that something that was birthed out of?
Well, no, we was actually doing that work already, but I did have the good fortune of being in the delivery room when the racial equity policy was born and delivered. When I got here, probably about a year after I've been here, was working with Dr. Marshall, and he had rough draft of the outline of the policy, what would it cover, and I said, man, if you could do that, that would help a lot, especially DEP, but it would help JCPS, because we've heard before, we would have so many issues pop up, but having that policy, that overarching policy, everything fits under, even the stuff that we have existing, like the Minority Women Business Supplier Diversity Program. But it is based and rooted on recognizing that public school has not always been welcoming or serving the best interests of Black and brown students, especially African Americans. And so worked with and I can talk a little bit about that if you don't mind, but another colleague of mine, she's no longer here, Dr. Dresser-Burke, myself, and Dr. Marshall, for a year long, we pulled together some of the highly sought out intellectual folks from around the town from various industries, but all having that focus on education. And we met with them, we brought in experts that presented to them, and after a year, we began developing a rough draft of the policy that went out to the various areas. And it's one policy, it's probably one of 10 policies, probably the main, the most effective because of the teeth that's in the policy. But I was encouraging Dr. Marshall to do that because coming out of state government, I understood policy and I understood the benefit of it. Another thing is the reason why policies are important because people come and go.
Yeah.
But policies stay around. Now, but at the same time, it's important that we continue to raise the awareness around the policy because more often than not, you can have a policy on the books, doesn't mean that everyone's abiding by it.
It's adhering to it, yeah. Is that something you find not happening in the work that you do? I don't want to say intentionally not adhering or following, but some of the pieces around the inequities that minority businesses face, are there things that we as a district could do better as far as increasing the monitoring, ensuring that some of these things are actually being adhered to?
Yes, ultimately, it would be nice if those bids were evaluated. So why is that important? So if it was evaluated as opposed to just going by the lowest cost, regardless of what you got in it, say for instance, Group A bids hypothetically $120,000 on a project, small number, but they reached their 20%, their 15% goal in their bid. But suppose the other company submits $100K and does not reach their goal or doesn't have any inclusion. Right now, that company that bids $100K wins. But if we are really about that life around racial equity, then we should be like, you know what, we'll pay a little more because we know it's going to have that exponential economic impact, and somebody's student in some one of these schools are going to benefit and do better because we got that inclusion there.
Yeah.
And a lot of times too, there's this mindset of when it comes to serving our students and teaching our students, there's a lot of blame tendency on just poverty alone. But if that's the case, then we gotta spend our money based on that. And when we don't spend our money and we use that as a blame, then we act like we don't know what we doing. Or we having some bad intentions.
Correct.
Or not the best intentions, let me say that.
And for me, I think it goes beyond just meeting the goal, right? I feel we should be exceeding that. I think
yes,
you meet your goal, you get a little skin in the game. It's a lot easier the next go round, right? Just getting a little bit bigger slice of that pie.
Right.
As we talk about pipelines, specifically teacher of record, educators, administrators, we talk a lot about filling that pipeline because that pool is not very large right now. So we have programs like the Louisville Teacher Residency Program.
Okay.
Is there anything current or maybe in the future similar to a Louisville Teacher Residency Program or a pipeline type program for supplier diversity?
Well, we always encouraging and trying to expose our students, and we definitely need to be way more intentional. One of those areas is what we call the trades program, where it's a partnership, collaboration between DEP, operations department, finance department, and HR, human resources. And so the goal is to low-hanging fruit. Those students, like the students at Iroquois, how do we find them intern and co-op opportunities, even with JCPS? Once again, we the biggest real estate holder, and a lot of our real estate needs TLC, but we have an aging workforce. So how is it that theoretically, you think about it, JCPS is we produce at least 60% of the workforce, at least, for Louisville. We should not be hard pressed to be finding talent when the talent is right there. Who has more touch?
It's coming from us.
Right. And you'd be surprised, man. We have Academies of Louisville program, and we had to go through the due diligence of, good, bad, or indifferent. I was real intentional about making sure we connected our operations department to our Academies of Louisville department. So Academies of Louisville is basically our career pathway to work in the high schools. And so far, we have made that partnership formal, but we still having to work around some of the details of creating opportunities for the students within our schools. So that's a pipeline opportunity where, and it just doesn't stop with kids working for JCPS. It's also a focus of making sure that those who have the skill set within our operations department are able to take advantage of opportunities from a promotion standpoint. So it goes from the classroom all the way up to leadership, or we'd like to see a pipeline go from the classroom all the way up to full-fledged general prime contractor business. But the important thing is not just on JCPS, but that's the community part of my role. How do we work with community so that along that pipeline way, if there's leaks in that pipeline, or if there's not strong anchors and support to get to the next place and learn what I need to learn to build my capacity so I can be successful, then we have to work with community to fill in those gaps and find out where those resources are to support our students.
So me as I would say a new business, that may not be new as in establishment of business, but looking to become a new vendor with JCPS. What could I expect to encounter along that journey?
That's a good question, because actually we're dealing with that on the goods and services side. So now we've been successful with the construction renovation side, and the goals and things are working there and much more improved. It's important that we look at goods and services now, because a lot of our vendors, our potential vendors, are that have done business with JCPS, primarily with our schools mostly, providing services. Sorry about that. Providing services, professional services, some small goods and services to our schools. It's a two-part process. One part of the process is, of course, going to our purchasing website, getting information there, finding out how you get the information on bids coming out. So when you sign up for that, you find out when bids come out. But then two, if you know specifically of a school that's looking for your goods or service, then the school can actually not only work with our purchasing but accounts payable department to set that person up as a vendor. And but it's important that you have that point of contact because right now we're in the process of trying to make our vendor system more efficient. We have a lot of old data in there, and so we're trying to create processes where as we do intake on business contact information, making sure that it's up to date, relevant, and that they're actually doing business with us, not just sitting dormant.
So, and this is good information for me. So, what I'm hearing is you have essentially two sides of supplier diversity. So you're looking at it from a lens of renovation and construction.
Right, bricks and mortar, yeah.
Bricks and mortar, which is completely different from the goods and services.
Yeah,
right?
more often than not. But sometimes they come in contact with two. Like for instance, 7 p.m. group would be considered a professional service, as opposed to a brick and mortar thing. But it helps support. It helps support that. So yeah, it's pretty much those two areas.
Because you're always in the community, you're a leader, organizer, big influencer, boots on the ground. How do you separate or turn off that work switch, right?
Man,
how do you find that work-life balance? Do you always have your racial equity, diversity, inclusion, all these buzzwords? Do you always have that lens on, or have you kind of learned when and where to turn it off?
Sometimes life forces me to turn it off. I mean, I do, you got a personal life because, you got the demands of, I'm a husband, father, son, got no stuff, church and my other organizations, fraternity and stuff like that. So but with all those things I mentioned, no, I don't really turn it off. I mean, I must admit, man, I'm blessed, man. And, a lot of people, probably always saying, well, won't you go after this job or won't you go after that job? And I mean, in time I will, but right now, with me being a father, my son got maybe two years left in high school, my youngest. I really just like where I am now because I'm able to have the impact. But to the question, this is has always been my purpose. I've always saw it as my purpose. So it's a lot of times it's second nature, and trying to be good at it, you got to be flexible. So like if I go to church on Sundays, coming out of worship services, it's like work time. Because when people see you, hey man, I need this with JCPS, and I'm trying to find this, I'm trying to do this with JCPS. It's like, man, once they find out where you work at, it's like they think you do. you know JCPS, everything about JCPS. And it'd be funny, sometimes I get the inquiries, like I get a text message or something, and I'd be like, why do you think I can? But then after a few minutes, I think about, well, call such and such, I go this route. So I'm glad people see me as a resource. And it's important, like I said, it's part of my passion, it's part of my purpose, but also understanding that it's not just a job for me. Yeah. So it's really a way of life. So if I didn't have this job, I probably would still be the same way. Yeah. I was in state government, but I was kind of the same way.
Same way then, yeah.
Yeah, but JCPS has been really cool because, we in a department that allows for some creativity, but yet at the same time, we know the race issue in our community is a pressing issue, and it's holding Louisville back. And the fact that we get to work within JCPS to address that, then we know that it's very critical to our young people being adults in the community, being able to address it.
So our time is running a little short here.
Okay.
I do have a couple more questions I want to attack and just give you an opportunity to speak on them a little bit.
Okay.
So we talked about supplier diversity training. We
Right.
talked about doing business with JCPS. Let's spend 2.5 minutes talking about dorms.
Okay. And we're enhancing the name. It's going to be called Dorms, the Upgrade College Conference. So it's basically
Well, for those that don't know currently what dorms is,
right.
What is
Dorms is basically a college-going workshop, half a day. It takes place after school's over with, because initially we noticed when I first started, kids were, especially some of our seniors, were graduating from high school, and then about a couple weeks after you get out of high school, you realize, oh, what's our game plan?
Yeah.
Right, and they hadn't always done all the due diligence around going to college. Not to mention our counselors in our schools, while they're doing a great job, the reality is they can't touch all our students. They sometimes it's like a ratio of 250 students to 1.
Yeah.
And so it's important that we as community do what all we can to expose our young people to the ones that do want to go college. Not only the encouraging them that they can do it, but showing them how to do it and get the resources. So we do that once a year. Last year we did it first time on a college campus at JCTC. Great experience. But it's really cool. It's not just for students. We have workshops for parents as well.
Okay.
And the parents participated last year just as much as the students did. And we have probably about 10 to 12 colleges that come. And we feed them breakfast and lunch. We give away scholarships. We give away 8 to 9 scholarships. So it's a really good time. But every year I do it, I'm reminded, oh yes, this is needed, because I'm seeing students with 3.5s and 4.0s that hadn't really talked to anybody yet. Them like, dude, you running around with a lottery ticket that you don't know where to cash.
You have no idea.
Yeah, so that's that.
And you have one
June 24th
June
coming up this
24th,
year
right?
at JCTC again. Yes.
Yep, that's going to be at the college's Health Science Building, 110 West Chestnut.
Yep.
This decision, organization, ready, meet, study.
Yep.
Dorms.
Yep.
All right. We didn't touch on ACRE, your Advisory Council for Racial Equity.
Yes.
Give us about a nice minute spill on that.
Okay. Well, ACRE was basically a part of the racial equity policy. We wanted to make sure we didn't only have the policy, but because of the process of the community supporting and informing that policy, we realized we needed to have a community and some JCPS. We needed a group that looked at our racial equity issues, and that's what ACRE does. And they advise Dr. Polio, the board, and others as well, give feedback, and they also carry the messages and awareness out to community.
Okay. Yeah. I think that their next meeting is the 18th, May 18th.
Yes. Yes.
And then for you, I would say I saved the best for last.
Okay.
I mean that in a subtle way. But talk to us a little bit about men equality.
Oh, okay. Men Equality is mentoring program started in 1995. Million Man March. A couple of my fraternity brothers heeded to the call of action. Not only just having a march, but what are we going to do to improve the quality of life of black men? And as a result, came back to Louisville, worked with JCPS to create his mentoring program. There are different programs. Ideally, you would like to have a one-to-one mentor-mentee,
Yeah.
but we don't have that luxury as African American men. So it's about really exposing young people to the opportunities and careers, and to encourage them to make the best decisions and do well in school. So start off as a conference. We still have that conference. Just had a conference last week.
Yeah.
Now it's grown to 2 days. 1 day for elementary, second day for middle and high school. Almost 1,100 students at the University of Louisville campus with
man,
workshops.
I saw some of it on social media, man, and it's very impressive. And
Thank you.
you know, I have a lot of programs that come through the satellite office, and everyone speaks so highly of men equality. Members of my fraternity, Kappa Alpha Psi, all the sororities, community members, like it is a phenomenal
Yeah,
phenomenal
y'all doing your
program,
thing
man.
too. At Kappa League, man. Kappa League's nice. We what I like about men equality, because yes, my fraternity's involved in volunteers, but it's not just about us. We're exposing the students to all men.
Oh, yeah.
So we got all organizations helping us out,
Yeah.
and we could not do it. We call it Men Equality Program, and we get the attention for it, but we could not do it with the sisters and the ladies in these schools that
big help.
coordinated to make it happen. So.
Yeah. All right, leave us with one final thought. I want to know someone who has influenced you to do the work that you're doing today.
Oh, it's too many to bog it down to one, but I've been blessed to come across a lot of mentors and people who have done great things in the community. I really just try to always just be around and soak it up. But the one thing that they tell me and I share with others is when I would benefit or when I was exposed to something or encouraged and or created an opportunity for me to take advantage of, I was always told, just remember to do it somebody else. That's the contract. And so whatever, just remember that it's important for us always to not forget where we come from, and also always give back, because that's the best investment, and that's going to be your best return on investment.
Yeah. Delquan, I appreciate you.
All right, man. Appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you for the opportunity, man. It's always good to connect with you and continue to do the work that you're doing. We need it. Keep those pipelines full, and we'll catch you on the next one.
All right. Thanks. I
Thank you.
appreciate it.